what's going on, my friends? It's Dave Sharpe and Ryan Halpert. What's going on, brother?
What's up, Dave? How you doing today?
Good. Welcome everybody to excuse me, Wake Up Legendary. We're excited this morning to talk about one of the most important topics that you'll ever talk about, which is making freaking decisions. And this is something that a lot of you need a lot of work on. I know I did when I first got started as an entrepreneur. And needed to learn how to make a decision. Did not know how to make a decision. Was very indecisive and was just not a good decision maker. And I realized that owning a business, that was your number one job, was to actually make the decisions. And so we're going to talk about the biggest decision you'll ever have to make in your business today, right, Ryan?
That's it. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's more or less there's how to make major decisions, but then also how to just make decisions so that way, because otherwise you end up freezing, right? That's something that would freeze me up when I got started. Was I didn't know how to make a decision on something that really didn't matter. Like the outcome of what I was trying to do wouldn't change based on what my decision was. But here I was kind of stuck on this thing, kind of like when you're looking at a hammer. We've used that analogy a lot of times with software, right? Standing there in Lowe's, just looking at the hammers and trying to figure out which one you're going to grab, right? And I took a picture of myself looking at the hammers one day because I thought it would be funny. I didn't know if I could use it at any point in time. It's probably buried in my camera roll now. But yeah, I mean, it's the perfect analogy because all the hammers are going to do the same thing. There's no sense in standing there for 2 and 3 and 5 days, trying to figure out which hammer you should grab to just put a nail in, and that's where I would get stuck a lot of times when I started, was just on a lot of these little decisions that really didn't matter. One of the questions I get all the time that people freeze on, they can't move forward, right? That's usually how they'll frame the question. Yeah, I feel like I'm stuck and I can't move forward because I just need to know, should I use a creator account or a business account on Instagram? And it's like, you should have just picked one and you could have switched it. Like, what a stupid ass thing to get stuck on. But people get stuck on that kind of stuff all the time. And those are the areas where you got to make a decision just fast. And you got to just say, well, I'm just going to do this. And if I screw it up, I mean, what's really going to happen if I screw this up or make the wrong choice here? Is it going to be catastrophic, or is it going to just not matter at all?
That is a potent example there, right? Of getting stuck on something that is not important in the grand scheme of things, and that you can actually switch later on and change later on. I think one of the things about owning a business and just life in general is that you can always fix things down the road. You can always change things. You can always go back on things. And I didn't really realize that when I first got started. I also was indecisive, overthinking, thought I needed to make sure every decision was the perfect decision before I made it. And like you just said, that was a great example of something that just is right there at step 0. And it's like, you haven't even logged in. You haven't even created anything yet. And you're already stuck on something. And if that's your tendency, then look out, because there's going to be a lot of things you're going to be stuck on, and you need to learn how to make quick decisions and move past things, and learn how to shoot first and ask for forgiveness later, or ask for permission later to go back and fix it. 99.9% of the time, it'll be no harm done.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's how most things are going to be in the business. Now, if we shifted to the other side of this, to some of these major decisions, I mean, you've been running the business for 8 years. I mean, what is one of those big decisions where you might say, all right, you should consult somebody when it comes to this, or you should definitely take your time and definitely weigh out the pros and cons? Like, what's a decision that you've had to make at one point in time where it's like, all right, I got to make sure that I put my best effort into trying to get, make the best decision possible in this moment? Is there any one situation that kind of comes up for you?
Well, I mean, some of the big decisions that are important that you should make and that I've had to make over many years of owning a business is in that I've had to consult somebody for is things like taxes and legal stuff. But now that we have I can go and at least check my work and check my
Mm.
thinking with basically the combined knowledge of the entire world, which allows me to, in most cases, keep moving forward in the direction that I'm moving forward. Because usually what I need to do is I need to check in with, in certain instances, a CPA or an attorney just to make sure that what I'm doing is on the right path. But once I know that what I'm doing is on the right path, I usually don't need anything from anybody unless I'm ready for that, them to kind of build me out something, or say, for example, I need an attorney to write a contract. The bottom line is that, you know, I need to come up with the details and the terms of that contract first before I'm even ready for him to begin writing it. And so my point here is that there's not a whole lot of things that I go to outside people to ask them for anymore. And there, over my career, usually hasn't been a whole lot of things that I got to go to outside people to ask them for, because again, unless it's a professional expert services person like a accountant or an attorney, because most things I'm shooting first and asking for permission later, or shooting first and going back and fixing, or asking for forgiveness later.
Yeah. I like that. It's almost like use your resources and do your best to try to solve your problem and work your way through to a solution first. And then if you fail, then you outsource to solve the problem, right? Then
Yeah.
you
I mean, what
outsource.
was a decision that you had to make early on in the business that you needed to, that you, same question. I mean, that you
Yeah.
either needed to make, or that you felt like was something that you needed to consult somebody with, or I mean, what?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've got two kind of different examples I can give. And first one is just in the beginning when I was trying to set things up, I was just like everybody else with the funnel stuff and at the time I was setting up ads, tech stuff, didn't really know how to do it. And I didn't want to waste time. I didn't want to delay getting launched. I knew I had to do this to launch, but I didn't want to delay. So I went and I hired a coach, right? I hired somebody that can help me with that process. And I went into that with the intention of learning how to do it. So that way, okay, I've got a problem. I'm struggling. I'm wasting time. I don't have a lot of time. I'm still working a job. I need this thing to friggin' work and get started here. I need to learn how to do this and do it. So that way I can start making progress. But I got to learn in the process of hiring somebody to help me get this done faster. So that way I can do it myself in the future when I need to do it again and get really, really good at it. And that was the first kind of decision I made. It was a decision where, you know what? It's worth the money I'm going to spend to hire this person to sit here with me an hour at a time and get this done, because that's going to, even though it's going to take me, I was always so big on the P&L, right? What's it costing me and how much do I got to make back before I get it to break even? And it's going to push me further away, but it's worth it because the time is very, very important too. Also, is there any kind of like obvious thing that I'm doing wrong that I don't see because I'm new to this that's going to potentially be something I should be worried about? And that was another thing that was a side benefit of, okay, I'm going to work with a coach, somebody that's going to actually help me make sure I get this started and do it quickly. And the next big decision for me, major life decision, was quitting at my heavy equipment business to do this full time, and having that. And that was something I sat on the fence for so long, right? I could have done it sooner, honestly. And I've told the story before. I went into the hospital, I had COVID, and I come out and I kind of was, forced to make that transition. I could have transitioned sooner, right? I could have closed that business down. It probably would have been cleaner. I probably would have even walked away with more money at that point, and went to went to do online marketing full time, I could have made that decision sooner. Something else not within my control had to make that decision for me because I sat on the fence too damn long. And it's just lucky I kept doing things up until that point that allowed that to be a reality, right? I was creating content, I had ads going, all these different things. But yeah, that was a very, very tough decision. And at that point, the people I consulted with was just my girlfriend, my girlfriend at the time, who's now I call her my wife. She's I call her that. She's my we were living together when all this happened already. And she was really the only one I consulted with, and she had an income. And I'm like, look, here's the situation, right? We're not at $0, but we're not at a lot of money coming in, but we're at enough coming in that I can cover all of this, and we're not going to go backwards. And if something bad happens and it doesn't work, I've got this much savings. You've got an income. How do you feel about this? And she's just like, just do it. Just go for it and just do it. And that was all the consulting that I needed.
That you got that consulting blueprint.
I got that consulting blueprint. That was it. And it was just, go ahead and do it. I knew that I just had to say it in a way. I knew what I wanted. I just needed the approval, right? I needed
permission.
Yeah, exactly. In a way for that, because, and that was something where, we always talk about don't ask for permission, but it was going to affect her life.
You were on your knees.
It was going to affect her life as well. If I started all of a sudden not making any money. But anyways, I knew how I had to package that in order for it to look like the obvious decision to make. And she's probably watching me say all this right now. And so that's what I did. And so she's like, all right, let's go ahead and do it. She was working as a dispatcher at the time. So she was actually working nights. So she would sleep during the day. And so it was kind of like a good situation for me, because now I had all day while she was asleep to work on my stuff. And then, I didn't have anything else to really have to worry about, right? There wasn't any kind of other distractions or anything else available. And then she would go to work at night, and I would keep working way into the evening. So it worked out pretty well. It was a good arrangement for us, but that was my decision, my 10-minute decision journey there of.
Well, you triggered a couple of thoughts as you were talking. And I mean, one of the thoughts was, if you don't learn how to make decisions for yourself, somebody else is going to make those decisions for you. Life is pretty much, there's somebody in the room that's going to make the decision. Yeah. It's either going to be you or somebody else. And that's essentially going to be true for nearly every aspect of your life. And you get used to that. We get used to somebody else making the decision for my life, for when I'm going to show up for work, for how I'm going to show up for work, for what I'm going to do, for all the details, how long I'm going to drive, sit in my car, how much I'm going to spend on gas, what kind of car I'm going to drive, where I'm going to live, because all of that is dependent upon, for the most part, what I'm making, and even what I've been taught before that, other decisions that people have made for me. So you got to figure out how to get in the driver's seat of your life. Every aspect you need to want to. And if you don't, that's therein lies the problem, that you don't want to be in control of your life, that you don't want to be the decision maker. And if that's the case, then you're going to make a bad business owner. Just saying that right up front.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it definitely goes a little bit deeper than just right and wrong when you're a business owner. When you're a employee, right? At least I speak from my own experience when I was working in a dealership, there was no real big decision making I ever had to make. It was just right or wrong. right? Is this the right way to do this, or is this the wrong way to do this? And I've been taught the right way to do this by people that are here longer than me. So this is just the way you do it. So you're kind of like a robot. It's like an assembly line, even though it's not a factory job. It's still an assembly line sort of lifestyle. Whereas when you're a business owner, you make all those decisions. There's no right or wrong. And I find a lot of times there's multiple right answers, and then it's just a matter of trying to choose which one of the right answers you're going to go with. And the plus side of that is that if there's one answer that's going to be more right than the others, you could always, there's never anything bad that happened. And really the biggest decision is just that you did something, right? That you did something about it, that you didn't ignore it, that you identified that a decision needed to be made, like a problem. You identified the problem. You chose to pay attention to it and address it. And then you actively made a decision on what to do to solve that problem. But it's a very, very different thing from being an employee by in such a high way, a massive way. Like I used to get stuck on decisions that were so nuanced, so minuscule, prior to becoming a business owner. Like if I woke up in the morning and I felt kind of crappy, like, how hard it was for me to make the decision. Am I going to call in and tell them I'm not coming, or am I going to go to work feeling like shit because I don't want to make the phone call? And it's like, those were the type of decisions I was plagued with prior to that. Now, up until now looking back at that now, I think, oh my God, that's so ridiculous. Like, I can't believe I was so afraid. It was so hard to make that decision back then. But at the time, right, why would it have been easy? My experience, there was nothing I experienced that should have made that an easy decision to make. But it's just crazy to me that I could look back and think of that decision and be how stuck I would get on something like that. And think, why was I so stuck on that? Why is that something that plagued me? Because now that would just be a nothing thing. That would just be I feel like shit. And well, I'm going to go work anyway, unless I actually physically can't move. Right. It's like the criteria has got a lot smaller, it makes it easier to make that decision. And so, but anyway, I don't know if that example really made a lot of sense, but I look at certain decisions I used to have to make as an employee, and I think that would be a really easy decision to make today. But back then it was very, very hard.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think that, that's where most people get stuck. It's kind of like deciding on whether or not you want to come to mastermind. It shouldn't be that hard of a decision, right? Is there going to be breakthroughs there? Is it going to be life-changing? Is it going to be a one-of-a-kind experience that I may never get the opportunity to do again? Right? Yes. And what do I have to exchange, right? What's the suffering? What's the sacrifice I have to go through to experience that? Well, I've got to travel. I got to buy a ticket. It's like, all right, well, that's an easy decision for me,
I heard this quote. I got to share this. I heard this quote the other day. It said, everybody is going to hurt you. It's just figuring out which ones are worth suffering for. And that really hit me, because every single relationship that you have is going to meet a difficult moment. There's going to be a moment in that relationship to where it's a difficult moment. Perhaps it's when that relationship comes to an ending of some sort, or it changes. Perhaps it's when you have to tell that person about something that you prefer, you like, and that's really hard and uncomfortable. You're afraid that that's going to change the dynamic of the relationship. But yeah, everyone and everything is going to hurt you. It's just figuring out what is worth suffering for. And I would say that important relationships are, of course, suffering for your business, your livelihood, your purpose, the thing that pushes you and gives you part of your purpose, whatever that is. But I would assume, hopefully, that's if you have a business, that's your business. If that's your spouse, that's your spouse, your kids, family, friends. That's what I'm assuming for most people, right? And if it's some materialistic stuff, I ain't mad at you. Go on about your whatever's important to you. Doesn't matter. It's what's important to you. But at some point, even if it's, oh my God, the most important thing is that car sitting in your garage. Well, that thing's gonna get a scratch, man, or that thing's gonna, somebody's gonna hit you, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sitting at a stoplight and somebody rear-ended me in a $250,000 Mercedes G-Wagon, G63, the AMG version, and I just thought, damn, man, like, good thing I wasn't that attached to that car. You know what I mean? Because like I was sitting there looking at it in disarray. But everyone is going to hurt you. I heard that quote and I thought, man, that's powerful. It's trying to figure out which ones are worth suffering for.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that's very, very, it's because it's going to affect, like we were talking about yesterday, how you've got some friends that've got some supercars and some really, really cool stuff, which we were talking about kind of, man, what if you get in a wreck with that thing? What if all this different stuff, and you've had that happen. And, I couldn't, and that's something that, like if I had a multi-$100,000 supercar and I got into a wreck, I would be devastated, right? That would be, right. How big of an impact is that? I mean, how much is that value of that vehicle to you that, I guess is going to determine the effect of it versus if it's a $5,000 Honda Civic that you picked up as a beater that, if it breaks down on the side of the road, you'd probably just leave it there and call a cab, so, and that's another sort of decision situation, right? So if you break down with a supercar, the way you're going to handle that's going to be way different than if you break down with that $5,000 Honda Civic. And, so it affects you differently. It affects you differently just because of how different the situation is. But yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because there's certain things that if you can identify them early on as like it's kind of like when people say it must be nice, oh, that must be nice. That's got to be one of the most annoying things that people say, especially when something was like hard to get. When somebody says, oh, it must be nice, right? But if you could identify something early on that is a just nice to have type of thing, or it's nice to keep it around, if something were to happen to it, or if it were to hurt you at some point and have to go, it's nice to have come to terms with that already and to already know what that situation is going to look like or how big of a deal that really is, right? Like if my wife decided to walk out, that's a big friggin' deal. Like there's no easy way that's going to go down. There's no simple process for that. Or, but if somebody else comes around and all of a sudden they're looking like they want to, be a friend again or do something like that or talk or, insert themselves into my life into some way where I don't really need them. Right. Well, there's not going to be a big effect there. There's actually probably only going to be negative effects by letting that person come back in. So now I can very easily say, yeah, no, this might be a decision where I miss out on something good, but I think there's a better chance where I'm going to experience something I don't want. So why don't you just get the hell out of here and not talk to me anymore? And that's kind of how I might handle that situation. Right. But yeah, no, so it's also, an element of kind of knowing that you're going to get hurt at some point in time. Like, how can you prevent that from even happening in the first place? Is the benefit going to outweigh, right? Is there going to be a strong enough initial benefit here to where, I should take that risk, let that person come in or let that thing come in, whatever it may be. And then, have to worry about if that's going to happen, if it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's true. Back to the, decision-making topic. I want to give everybody a challenge. It's to look at everything that you have that comes up today and just make a decision on it within 5 seconds. Just clear it off your to-do list. Just decide. Doesn't matter what it is, make a decision about it. This is going to push a lot of you, make a lot of you uncomfortable. This is sort of like me asking you to be aware of your language, the things that you say. Oh, I'm not good at this. I'll must be nice for them or whatever. They're better on camera. I'm not as good as the ways in which we talk down to ourselves. I oftentimes ask people to be aware of that, like at masterminds or just generally for a week, be aware of the way in which you're talking about yourself, the way in which you're putting yourself down, the way in which you don't accept. I saw a video the other day about just simply accepting a compliment, learning how to say thank you, practicing thank you. And then letting somebody know how that made you feel. That made me feel really, really great. Thank you. Or just learning to say thank you instead of deprecating yourself. Going into self-deprecating humor or something. This old, somebody compliments your shirt. Oh, this old thing. Yeah, I just pulled it out of the back of the closet. A lot of times we put things down because we're uncomfortable taking the compliment, and in some ways it's been taught that it's polite to be humble like that. But the problem is when there is a difference between humility and insecurity. And if you're truly secure and humble saying that, more power to you. Because look, I know a lot of guys, and a couple of them that I have, particularly ones from New York, that I do have running jokes with, and it's like, oh, what nice watch. Well, this whole thing, and it's $100,000 watch. I'm not talking about when you're joking. I'm talking about when you're serious, just learning how to take a compliment. So this is normally like I would assign or ask people to pay attention to their language. In this case, I'm asking you to pay attention to your decisions and how quickly or slowly you make decisions, how long it takes you, how many you move into table to tomorrow. One of the most, look, I would say that this is as detrimental as procrastinating things to do is procrastinating decisions to be made.
Yeah.
So often we focus on our to-do list, but a lot of times the to-do list grows simply because decisions don't want to be made. That's why that's what the to-do list is all about. It's about decisions that you're avoiding. And so you begin to re-look at the to-do list from the lens of what of these are just decisions. It's not even work. Just a damn decision that needs to be made. And I call them, we do this a lot. I like to be in high pressure situations at this point now in life that I have to make a decision, because it's fun to me to be in a situation where I have to come up with something fast. It's almost like a game to me, right? Ryan witnessed a little bit of that yesterday with me, right? We had a meeting that we went over some things and then went into another meeting. And many of the things, or a few of the things for one meeting, were decided in the previous meeting. And it's like, those are things that could, in a lot of times I operate in life and business like that. And I notice a lot of high performers and elite achievers in their craft do as well. For example, surgeons can show up, and because they're so good at what they do, they don't need a long, big, multiple meetings leading up to the day of surgery. They need a meeting the morning of surgery to understand what they have. They need all of the right reports and tests to have been done so they have the right information to be able to know what they're doing. But they don't need a big, long, they show up and they get it done. Same thing with a lot of the things that I've done over my career. Some people spend so much time preparing that you frustrate and overwhelm yourself when you could just learn how to show up and kind of execute in the moment, or learn how to prepare closer to the thing that you're doing instead of future tripping about it for weeks or months leading up to the event. But I digress. My simple challenge is for you guys to just make decisions. Anything that comes up in your life today. And then if it feels good today, do it again tomorrow. Anything that comes up in your life, make the decision in the moment. Make the decision now. Decide it now. Don't put it off. Don't save it. Stop saving things on Facebook. Stop saving things in email. Some of you are master organizers of decisions that haven't been made yet. You got them organized in folders in Facebook, in folders in Instagram, in folders in your email inbox. Tell me if I'm not lying in the comments. Talk to me. Praise the Lord. You know, ushers, lock the doors. We raising 40,000 in here tonight. But for real, it's like your to-do list are not they're not to do, they're to decide list in most cases. So Callus feeling called out. Love it. Love it. Who else is feeling called out? Kay, you picking up what I'm putting down?
It's like something we're taught at like such a young age, like it's burned into our brain because all that development happens between 0 and 7, right? So it's like I remember being a kid and wanting something or wanting to do something or even like, and then you go to one of my parents and I'd say, hey, you know, can I do this? And my father would always say, well, you ask your mother, right? It's like, well, he doesn't want to make the decision as to whether I can do something or not. Then I go to ask my mother and then she tells me to ask my father. And it's just this back and forth thing. And then all of a sudden they both told me the same thing. So now one of them, somebody's got to make a decision as to whether or not. And then a lot of the times, neither one of them had a reason to tell me, no, I couldn't do the thing I wanted anyway, but they either come up with something or they would, you know, or there'd be some kind of reason, or it would be some long drawn out thing we have to think about, you know, I can remember this vividly as a kid, just never being able to get an answer for anything that I wanted. Right. It was, you know, can I go outside and play with the kids in the neighborhood type of stuff? You know, can I do this? Can I do that? Can you take me here? Can you take me there? And it was this, make the other person decide. And if neither one of us decide, then we're going to sit on it for a while. And then there was always some kind of a, well, if you do this, and this, and now all of a sudden I had to earn the damn thing. And then I had one of my grandmothers who would babysit us. She would say, oh, well, you got to ask God if you could do that. Like, what the hell does that even mean? I'm 5 and 6 years old. Like, what do you mean I'm supposed to ask God? How do I know if I get an answer? Right. I was always very logic based as a kid. So I never really understood what that meant. You know, I was kind of waiting for this voice in the closet to start talking to me all of a sudden when I prayed for the answers to whether or not I can have an extra bowl of ice cream or not. But, either way, but it's kind of like, as we're talking about it more,
that was deflection. She didn't want to make that decision. She didn't want to tell you no. So she said, ask God.
Yeah, ask God. And I think that was kind of I feel like now looking back, that was probably well, think about it to yourself and determine if you really need it or something. And maybe something along those lines. And I never gave a crap about that. I just wanted the ice cream. That was it. But, as we're talking about it, I'm thinking about all these different situations and these different things that came up even as a kid. And that kind of sticks with you, right? That was something that I kind of dealt with, right? It's kind of almost instinctual in a way. Like, something comes up. It's like, can somebody else help me with this decision? Or can somebody else make this decision? Can I offload this burden onto somebody else? I do find myself doing that with certain things, like even getting our house painted, right? Me and my wife, we spent, about this because we painted our house the same color as yours because we liked your house and we couldn't figure out a damn color, and 6 months had passed. And we didn't know, we still had this really ugly, dark peach color in our house from our house that we bought. So now we had to just finally make a decision. And that's what it came down to. It says, I'm sick and tired of looking at this color. That I know. This color needs to go. We got a bunch of colors on the wall. There's circles everywhere that all look the same. Let's pick one and go. right? And then it just so happened one of those circles was the color that you had on your house. And so I said, we're going to do that. I says, we're not even going to think about it anymore. And that's kind of how me and my wife, like together, just figured out, like, we're not going to worry about this anymore. We're just going to go. I'm getting the people on the phone right now. And I got the painters on the phone. They came in. We told them what color we wanted. And they had given us an estimate months ago. The guy would text us like 2 weeks. He dropped off a whole bunch of paint books and different things. And he's probably thinking, man, these people are anal. Like, they won't make a decision about nothing. But it's one of those things where I could have picked any of those colors that we chose and I would have been happy with it. I would have been content and satisfied with any one of those damn colors. But instead, we spent 6 months trying to figure it out, which is ridiculous. I look back now and I'm kind of embarrassed talking about that. I'm like, man, it took me 6 months to figure out like what color I wanted, and nobody's going to see it. Like, nobody's going to see it but me, right? And I'm trying to figure out, well, depending on the color, depends on what furniture you can get and all the curtains. And I'm like, anything can look good. I got to just make a decision, because here I am stuck on this. And now it's 6 months later and I still don't have curtains because it took me so long to paint this house. Why am I going to hang them up before I paint? Right. So it's like one decision, delay in the next, causing stress. And it's just, can't live that way, man. Can't live that way. Now, obviously that's like a it doesn't matter thing. I can live the same. My life doesn't change depending on the color of my house, right? But it's a thing we wanted to do. And here I was making a project out of it. So I feel like I'm pretty good at making decisions on things that actually matter, like, relationship, things that are going to affect my relationships, things that are going to affect how much money I make, right? Things that are going to affect how much money other people make. I'm good at those, right? I can make those quick. I can reason those. I know how to, with the big ones, figure out, okay, this is the direction we got to go, and arrive there pretty quickly. When it comes to that kind of stuff, though, right, that urgency's not there, right? So you kind of fall into those habits in a way. At least I do. I fall into those old ask your mother, ask your father type of habits. And it's interesting. It's almost kind of like a realization I'm having right now as we're kind of talking about it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, and that's great. I mean, this is one of the reasons why talking about it's good. The big decisions are the important ones. And I mean, I think also in relationship, it's definitely about, having somebody who appreciates your strengths and your weaknesses. If that is your strength, then that's what you focus on. And I've always been like that too. And I try to surround myself with people who are focused on details, who like to focus on details. I've had to become more of a detail-oriented person over the years, but making sure that you're knowing what you're good at and making sure that you make those important decisions are important, right? They are important. I guarantee if we would have had this talk though 3 months ago, right? If we would have done this show, you would have made the decision about the paint that day, right? But it just, for whatever reason, being a quick decision maker isn't always on the forefront of our minds, right? Because we don't talk about it. So we don't really realize how many different areas. I have them too. I could dig them up too if I wanted to do inventory. I could dig up things that I've procrastinated on that I could just make a decision today about. The reason why I can talk about all this stuff is because I am a human. I do it too. And it's an active act of will, of being aware to actually make those decisions. Nobody's built to be a decision monster. I'm a decision monster. I eat decisions like cookies. Every decision. Yes, no, yes, no. Right? Yeah. It's every person has that tendency to be like, well, what would you do? Or I don't know what the best decision, or I want to make the right decision, or yada, yada. Indecisiveness is built into every person, right? But it's a combination of a couple of things that help you become a fast decision maker. Number one is trusting yourself, just learning to trust yourself and learning to, trust the decisions that you make and know that you can adjust them along the way. That you don't have to, you don't have to get ready for so long, because nothing's going to be perfect. I love people that wait so long. They're like, okay, I'm getting ready to start a business, for example. They're like, it's taken them 6 months to make the decision to buy. And they're like, oh, okay, it was such a big decision. But now it's sort of like buying a house. It's like the day you buy the house is when the work begins. People are the same thing with the house. Oh God, it took us, so long. We searched so hard, but now we've finally done it. Right. And it's like the next day then's move-in day. The work just begun. You're going to be fixing that thing for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I'm learning that.
I mean, it's great that you finally made the decision to buy, but it's like, or you finally made the decision to, whatever you did to move. If you were to look at a timeline of something, you would see it's that phase of contemplation that's before the decision. And that phase of contemplation usually lasts years for some people, for a lot of things. I saw it in sobriety and have seen it. People will go back out and be homeless and smoke crack and shoot dope and drink alcohol on the streets because they're contemplating whether sobriety would be right for them. They're homeless living in a shelter, but they're in contemplation mode, right? And it's like, we don't know what we don't know. We're blinded by our own blind spots. And a lot of them are just decisions that we camouflage as we're doing research and development. Many of you are doing that in different phases of your business. Oh, I'm going to take another course. I'm going to take another lesson. I'm going to read it again. I'm going to go through it again. I'm going to do it again. Instead of beginning to test and trial and take action on your own to figure out how the information that you're learning relates in real life. And that's ultimately what becoming a great leader and a great CEO and a great executor is about. At a certain point, you can only watch so much film. You got to get out into the field. You got to play. That's why the off season only lasts so long, and you play a game a week during football season, because you got to get out there and get on the field. That's what matters. That's what you get paid for. You get paid to play. And so you got to make the decision to get on the field. With that being said, my friends, powerful episode. Always does come out great. Really does. Meet us in Nashville for our next mastermind, September 5th, 6th, and 7th. Go to legendarymarketermastermind.com/Nashville. Meet us there, my friends. It's going to be a blast, a lot of fun, great speakers, great content, great partying, fun, all the things, networking, new friends. It'll exceed your expectations. I can assure you of that. Ryan, thanks for your help as always, brother. We will see you on the flip side, and be legendary, my brother. Appreciate you. And all of you that are here, you guys make this show so Ryan and I aren't just talking to ourselves, which is awesome. We like that. We appreciate that. We'll see you back here tomorrow for another episode of Wake Up Legendary. Be legendary. Be great, my friends. Have a fantastic Tuesday. Get out of here. We'll see you back here.